So part of teaching marketing at Nair College and just some of these video things that we love to do, I've always found value, and the students really love this too, is interviewing real people doing real business with real advice. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with academia and textbooks and theories, but I love interviewing people and just getting an idea of their relationship to marketing and stuff like that. So today I want to introduce a friend of mine. And actually, we had only met in person last week. It's 2020, like last 2022, last week, and we had actually worked together through the pandemic. And then when Katie, when you and I met each other, it's like, hi,
Yeah.
how are you? It was like, I knew that was you. But I guess that's our reality today too, right? So Katie Cyr is like, she is just the coolest person. Katie is a tea sommelier. And I'm just like, your website's right beside me here with you're holding tea and stuff. And I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. And Katie, I've used your services. I've used what you do with some of my clients, and we love what you do. But today, what I wanted to do was ask you a handful of questions. And both you and I have these thunderstorms coming over our houses right now. So if we get a little liney, whatever, but I think it's okay. But Katie, like, welcome. And I wanted to give you an opportunity, like, to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and your story.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me and joining us today. My name is Katie, and I am a certified tea sommelier through the Tea and Herbal Association of Canada. I get asked all the time, is that a real job? Yes, it's like a wine sommelier, but with tea. So I'm certified to speak on all things art, history, culture, blending, and my personal favorite, tea and food. So Neil knows I do tea and chocolate, tea and cheese, tea and cocktails, restaurant consulting. And I have my own loose leaf tea company. So I sell online through our e-commerce platform, as well as in select boutiques across Canada. And I've been an entrepreneur for just over 8 years now.
Good for you, Katie. How did you get into this? Like, how did you say one day, I'm going to dive into teas?
It's really interesting. And I always tell folks, and for students watching at home today, like, every part of your job and your life, it's funny how and fascinating how it leads you into different meeting new people and trying new things. So even if you don't feel your current job is bringing you joy, take what you can learn from that, and it's fascinating how that might help you in the future in an entrepreneurial journey.
Wow.
So I come from like a food and beverage background. So I was a barista at Starbucks for like 6 years. So that's really what got me into, first of all, we would do coffee tasting. So it was learning the art of how terroir, where something is grown, can affect the taste. So a French roast, different than a Guatemalan, then a Peruvian coffee. So I started off with a coffee foundation, and then was working in different cafes and restaurants, and really saw a lacking in the tea service program. So often there would just be like, bagged tea thrown in one of those little stainless steel teapots and thrown on the table. And I started to be fascinated by restaurants that were choosing to use loose leaf tea and finding ways that different teas can bring different feelings of joy or comfort, different herbal tisanes having health benefits. So I just started micro blending at home and creating little loose leaf blends for friends and family that I would just serve when they came over, and we'd have like our chai together, our chamomile. And I just started playing around with like, how can I make this into a business? Is this a thing? So I started seeing people asking, can I buy that blend that you made? Or, oh, can you go to my baby shower and do a tea talk for the guests there? Even though I had no kind of formal background in tea, people were kind of asking me and coming to me for tea advice. So what started off as a passion slowly kind of transitioned into a business.
Really?
Once I started dabbling more into it.
Yeah, and you've always spoken highly of your grandmother and the family effect.
Yep. So I grew up drinking tea as well. So that was always a huge part of my life. And it was Tetley tea, who is Irish and really liked a strong cup of black tea. So that was kind of my first foundation with tea. And then as I kind of got into the working world, seeing how different people interact with tea and coffee is a daily ritual that helps keep them kind of centered or awake or something to do with friends. So seeing that younger years and the formative story behind tea and how that kind of brought into my adult years.
Katie, I have a good news story. You're going to be happy.
Oh, please do. Yes.
What I'm doing. So I've replaced coffee in the morning. So Andrea is very healthy, and she's like, we're now drinking like an awake tea.
Amazing.
Like
yeah.
With almond milk. We do a little almond milk. So instead of cream, and I love it. It's fantastic. I don't get the same effects as coffee, but
there's a reason. There's L-theanine in tea, which is an amino acid that promotes the slow release of caffeine while inducing feelings of calm and peace. So you get the best of both world.
I'm calm.
And calm and peace, but also awake, which you obviously need. So
Wow.
yeah.
So you've had, like, tell us a bit more about kind of the business model, because a lot of the students right now, they realize, hey, if I work for somebody, I'll do well. But I'm hearing a lot of students now want to really kind of build their own business and stuff. But tell us a bit about, like, your business and kind of what is a typical day? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I launched my business. It's been 8 years, and just to give some context, some people just see where you are today and are like, "Oh, it looks so easy." But I ended up having a full-time job for the first like 6.5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have their own journey, and some people might fully just quit their job and if they have a support system, can do their business full time. For me, I always needed to have a full-time job while I was getting started, and I was just kind of doing evenings, weekends, selling the tea, at craft fairs and doing home parties and starting
Right.
a website. And I'll walk you through a day to day in just a moment. But so I just don't want to give the impression that like it's easy, because there's definitely lots of, as we know, you're going to maybe need to do some time after school working on your plan, or after work working on your business and filling orders into the night. So I kind of started off doing that, and then my business became very successful enough that I was able to quit my full-time job that had benefits and RSP and all that good stuff, and leave that for the risk of being an entrepreneur. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
And what you'll hear, and for the students watching at home, as Neil probably knows as well, every day is truly different, and that's what's so fun about being an entrepreneur. Is one day you might be doing interviews or sales calls, or speaking to folks on the phone. Other days I'm physically filling tea, in my case being like a food and beverage. So I'm in a commercial kitchen wearing a hairnet, literally filling tea or labeling bags. Other times I'm doing corporate events. So I'm at like a workplace and doing a team building exercise.
Yeah.
And before this class, I was experimenting with tea infused cocktails for a restaurant. So I was literally working and making a martini. So it truly shows like every day is different. Not every
Yeah.
day is
But isn't it
great and
amazing?
fun.
And
Really fun.
for
Yeah.
for the students, I've used you guys I've used you for corporate gifts, where you do a tea and a chocolate pairing and you have a package. And I ordered it for a client in Hamilton, and it showed up, and it was just a great conversation piece. And that's the e-commerce side of your business as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a website, which tends to be the way of the future now, with folks really like to be able to
Right
join,
here.
yeah, online. And one of the best investments I found was spending money on my site. Now everyone's going to have their own budget, and there's, you want to make sure you do things in small stages so it doesn't become insurmountable. But for me, investing a little bit into a web designer, and I found someone that was still new to web design, but just starting their business as well, that I wanted to support. So you don't always need to go spend thousands of dollars on a
Yeah.
big company.
Yeah.
I found someone I wanted to work with, also a young student, and they were able to design an amazing site. And as soon as I brought my new website out, I noticed my sales increased at least 60%, because having something that was very user friendly on both mobile and desktop, high image, like some with beautiful visuals, and like
Right.
using photography. So that was something that for folks out there, like having a good website can definitely make the world of
Wow.
difference.
I'm very proud of you. I'm
Oh,
very
thank
just so
you.
proud. You're just a great story. And I like the fact that you started off with, people look at you now and like, oh, you're successful. Yeah, I ate potatoes for a couple of
Oh,
years.
100%. Yeah. And that's why I love that you're interviewing real people as well. And I always love when I'm listening to a business interview and someone's giving like their real life story. They're not just glossing it over, because it's when we learn from each other and seeing that everyone had this journey, that it helps, like we're all in it together. We all started
So
from
true.
somewhere, and seeing how that growth happened.
Wow. Well, I guess that leads into, this is marketing and,
Yeah.
marketing and sales per se. But so how do you view marketing and probably the importance of the marketing, and what are some of the things that you really want to focus on when it comes to marketing?
Okay, amazing. Thank you. So one of the first things and that I notice, and from we've spoken about this in the past, is making sure your branding is on everything and cohesive. So having, and one of the advice that Neil gave me when we were working together was, example, the tea and chocolate package, not just sending the tea and chocolate out, but there was a special now, thanks to Neil's advice, in every gift set, a little welcome card that explains the pairings, has our branding on it, has our website.
Yeah.
And it's those little extra touches that you can give with, when I do in my marketing, either some little piece of free advice around tea, or an extra thing to have folks thinking of your brand.
Right.
Something that's really important that I've always done is sending a free sample in every order.
Oh.
So that's something, it's a non-negotiable. If they order 1 bag of tea, if they order 10 bags of tea, they're getting, and they don't know it's coming. I don't really advertise anywhere, but it's a special surprise and delight.
Yeah.
And that drives, first of all, brand loyalty because they're surprised and excited when they open it. It has all of our marketing or information on it. So either they might keep that for themselves or give that extra sample to a loved one, and then they're trying the tea.
Right.
So that was a little extra tool that I used to create customer awareness and brand loyalty and get them to try maybe another blend they might not have tried on our website.
Wow.
So that's been super important. And then in terms of like actual advertising, I invested last year, about a year and a half ago, I started paying for Google ads and making sure those keywords in our SEO is like on it, and it just business skyrocketed. So having actual, like, as much as we don't want to be spending extra money that we don't need to,
Right.
finding that balance, that sweet spot that works for you, that you can spend per month on your Google ads or whatever, you know, platform you want to go through. But I'm shocked when I look at my website analytics and see how many people are typing in loose leaf tea, tea workshop, private tea parties, all those things that are relevant to my business. So that for me was worth it, advertising, paying through for Google ads.
Yeah. And your business is probably never busier now because people are coming back to the office. And
Yeah.
listen, you work through COVID, but you, well, it's the word pivot, right? But
I know.
it didn't stop you, Katie. Like you kept, okay, I might not be able to be in front of people, so I'm going to focus on this e-commerce part of it. Like you never stopped. The pandemic never defined you. You were like, I'm going to use this and I'm going to work through it. And that's probably, well, I'll guarantee that's the reason why you're going to be so busy now, is because you saw it as an opportunity to be different. Right.
Thank you. Yeah. And I would
Katie,
say that.
no, go
sorry.
ahead, Katie.
I was going to say to folks watching at home, like, don't let any of these roadblocks stop you from pivoting, as much as I hate that word now, but like, if something happens in your business or as you're trying to grow your business, don't let that set you back. I've had so many different setbacks, but it's like, hey, let's find a workaround. It might take a day or two to think of a solution, but don't give up. You're so full of ideas and the world wants to see what you have to offer. So don't let things hold you back. There's always a way we can work around and find a new way to approach a situation.
Oh, just brilliant. Just brilliant. Katie, how do you know your marketing's doing well? I know measuring marketing is always like that elusive caramel secret, but how do you know your marketing's doing a great job?
Part of it, and this is like very old school, but is when I introduce myself or hear people say, "Oh, Monarch Tea Co, oh, I've heard of you." Like, I'm always listening to how people say how they've heard of me. Like, let's say you have a customer call you, and I'm sure, Neil, you do this, and for folks watching at home, don't be afraid to say, like, "May I ask how you found out about us?"
Yeah.
And I then kind of make a quick note. Oh, word of mouth. Oh, it was from that client. Oh, it was a Google search. Oh, it was Instagram.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid to go really old school and just genuinely talk to people. Hey, may I ask how you heard of us, or what brought you to find our website? Asking questions to real people that are interested in your product is very helpful. So that's one of the key things I do. And I just listen when someone says, "Oh, I've heard of your company around." I like to kind of just listen for those little tidbits. Obviously, analytics and engagement through like social media and kind of seeing how customers or our community is acting. When I introduce a new tea, I'm kind of monitoring some of the feedback around that, if people are excited and thoughts. And so don't be afraid to kind of tap in and listen to your audience and see if
Just great advice. Great
Thank
advice.
you.
So, like, speaking of advice, this is the basis of this whole interview together. Is, I've got 30 students right now working through the summer. A lot of them are international students. They're great people. They're sitting in a basement somewhere doing assignments. But if you could give them advice, so they're starting their careers. If you could give them some advice, Katie, what would you say?
Ooh, and is this specific to entrepreneurship or just in general for people
Anything,
starting?
just anything. What would you say?
I'm actually trying to think of my younger self too. Like, I guess, first of all, if you can, even keeping a journal or even little notes, if you're not into journaling, of those small wins, small progresses. Let's say you have an interview with a company that you've always been excited about. And even if that you don't get the job, but like that is a huge win to even get to the point of getting interview, or you're able to complete an assignment you never thought you'd be able to get done. Just those little small wins. Because even where I am now, I honestly sometimes forget that you look back at how hard you had to work to get to
Yeah.
where you are now. And as cliche as it sounds, but sometimes I have to visually remind myself. So I like looking to old photos and like, oh my gosh, that's when I first started and I had to lug everything in like a little bin because I couldn't spend money on a cart to pull
Yeah.
my tea because $100 was too expensive at the time. So I was as a young student and couldn't afford it. So like kind of seeing where you started and like then all these little steps that got you to where you are now, whether it's in a career path or an entrepreneurial journey, like don't forget where you came from because you have come so far. And like also don't be afraid to reach out to other folks, either someone you just see that's kind of where you would like to get to,
Yeah.
or a fellow student. Don't feel isolated if you're doing it virtually. Even through COVID, I was feeling some isolation, wishing I could speak to other business owners to know what they're going
Yeah.
through. And,
Yeah.
Neil, you had given me the advice, like, don't be afraid to reach out and ask to speak to, just see if you can have like a little quick 10-minute phone chat. And I did. And it's been so surprising the amount of people are like, oh, absolutely. Let's have a chat. And
Yeah.
as you start connecting to someone who's going through a similar journey, they have so much to say. And it's been wonderful. So don't be afraid to reach out to other folks if you need like advice or guidance.
You were also courageous enough. How we met was you were involved in the first Ontario Credit Union One Awards, which are an entrepreneurial startup support system. And you were part of a great group, and you were fortunate enough to be, one of the finalists and one of the winners. So congratulations to that. And I think that's really helped you create contacts to kind of step up to the next levels of business. What, Katie, like what's next for Monarch Tea Company? Like, what do you see? What's your vision?
Oh, well, I'm actually working right now on a whole packaging refresh. So this is one of the larger steps I've taken in my business, where everything is being completely brand new printing, working with a huge like marketing agency actually, and getting everything completely kind of rebranded. I'm still keeping my logo, but working on real packaging so that I can eventually be sold in like large chain grocery stores. So that's kind of the next step. So that's been an extremely huge learning process. So that's large. I'm looking at launching a tea subscription program so that folks that have their tea can get new monthly exciting offerings in their mailbox.
Very similar to the wineries. That's what the wineries are doing.
Yes, and I've been part of a wine club in the past, and it was the best thing ever. And talk about marketing and brand loyalty, like you're constantly reminded, you're able to share that with others. So those are the two big things I'm working on right now. And as I pivot it back into in-person events, even this Friday, I'm teaching a tea and cheese pairing workshop in Toronto. So it's fun to like see people again in person.
It's good to see you back. It's good to see you in person. Katie, how can people get a hold of you? How do people find your website? And I want some students ordering tea. Get on and order some tea.
Mention in the comment if you are a student of Neil's, and I'll throw in an extra sample. So I'm monarchtco.com or at Monarch Tea Co on Instagram.
Wow.
And you can use code workshop for 15% off your purchase as well.
I'm gonna go to I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah. Use the code. Yeah.
I feel like so Katie, like the storms of around, like they're going over my house right now. I can see it. Yeah. We've been pretty good. I want to obviously firstly thank you. We're both pretty busy, but you're really, really busy, for taking time out of your schedule, talk to us, and unselfishly help us out. And that brick wall behind you looks so cool.
Thank you.
I love it. I just love that classic. So stay on, but for now, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time.
And thank you everyone for watching today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat, and I just wish you all much success in your journeys.
Woo-hoo!